I was 7 years old the first time I realized a child could be replaced. Not neglected. Not ignored for a little while. Replaced. Before my little sister Emma was born, my parents acted like I was their entire world. Dad used to carry me on his shoulders through the grocery store while pretending I was the captain of a pirate ship. Mom helped me build pillow forts in the living room and always kissed my forehead before bed. I honestly believe that's what families look like forever. I couldn't wait to become a big brother. For months, I told everyone at school about the baby. I'll help change diapers. I'll teach her to ride a bike. I'm going to protect her from monsters. My teacher smiled every time I talked about it. You'll be an amazing big brother, Ryan. I believed her. I had no idea that, in my parents' eyes, becoming a big brother also meant becoming completely unnecessary. The day Emma came home from the hospital, our house was packed. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, neighbors. Everyone wanted to meet the miracle baby. I stood by the front door holding a drawing I'd spent 3 days making. It showed the 4 of us holding hands under a huge rainbow. At the top I'd written in giant colorful letters, "Welcome home, baby Emma." Mom walked through the door carrying Emma. Everyone rushed toward her. Phones came out. People cried. Dad laughed louder than I'd ever heard. Nobody noticed me. Not one person. I tugged on Dad's sleeve. "Dad, I made something." He barely looked down. "Later, buddy." Then he turned away. That, later, never came. My drawing stayed folded in my little hands until the paper became soft with sweat. That night, I found it crumpled under the kitchen table after someone had stepped on it. I quietly threw it away before anyone could see me cry. At first, I thought it was temporary. Babies need attention. I understood that. But weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. Every single thing became about Emma. If she smiled, everyone celebrated. If she sneezed, the entire house panicked. If she cried, Dad would sprint upstairs like the building was on fire. Meanwhile, I learned how to make cereal by myself. I packed my own lunches. I washed my own school uniform because Mom kept forgetting. At 8 years old, one afternoon I proudly brought home a spelling test. 100%. Gold star. Perfect score. I searched the whole house for Mom. She was sitting on the living room floor recording Emma stacking colorful blocks. "Mom!" She didn't answer. I waited. "Mom?" "What?" "I got 100. "That's nice, sweetheart." Without even turning around. Then she smiled into her phone. "Emma, stack another one. Grandma's going to love this video." I stood there another few seconds, waiting. Maybe she'd ask to see the test. Maybe she'd hug me. She never did. That night the paper disappeared somewhere under a pile of unopened mail. Birthdays became another reminder. When I turned 9, Mom bought cupcakes from the grocery store on the way home. She forgot candles. Dad came home late because Emma had dance class. We ate in silence. I opened one small Lego box. Then everyone went back to watching Emma perform spins in the living room. Less than 3 months later, Emma turned 3. They rented a giant party hall. Princess decorations covered every wall. Professional photographer. Pony rides. Face painting. Ice cream truck. More than 60 guests. Dad gave a speech with tears in his eyes. "Our princess deserves the whole world." I remember staring at my paper plate, trying to figure out what I had done wrong. Things got worse after that. Whenever Emma broke something, I got blamed. Whenever she cried, it somehow became my fault. She quickly figured out how much power she had. If she wanted my toys, she cried, Dad made me hand them over. "If you really loved your sister, you'd share." If she wanted the TV. She cried louder. I lost the remote. If she scribbled all over my homework. Mom sighed. She's just little, Ryan. If I complained. Dad frowned. Stop making everything about yourself. I started wondering. Maybe I really was selfish. Maybe I really was the problem. Children believe what they're told, especially when it comes from their parents. The moment everything truly changed happened when I was 10. My elementary school held an award ceremony. I won Student of the Year, perfect attendance, highest grades, volunteer award. Even my teacher called my parents personally. They really should come, Dad promised. We'll both be there. I kept looking toward the auditorium doors every few minutes. Parents filled every row. Families clapped. Children waved excitedly. An hour passed. No mom. No dad. When my name was announced, I walked onto the stage alone. The principal smiled kindly. Your parents couldn't make it? I forced a smile. They're probably running late. They weren't. After the ceremony, my teacher drove me home. She looked heartbroken when she saw the driveway full of balloons. Inside, more than 20 people filled our house. Pink decorations everywhere. Huge cake. Music. Emma was wearing a sparkly dress. Mom gasped when she saw me. Oh good, you're home. I looked around. What's happening? Dad answered without looking up. We're celebrating Emma getting accepted into Little Stars preschool. I blinked. Preschool? He nodded proudly. They only accepted 30 kids. I quietly held up the Student of the Year trophy. Nobody noticed. Not one person asked where I'd been. Not one person asked why another adult had brought me home. That night, I placed the trophy inside my closet. Nobody ever knew I had won it. Looking back now, that should have been enough. Most people would have called it emotional neglect, maybe even abuse. But compared to what came next, those years almost felt gentle. Because when I turned 11, my parents made a decision that permanently changed my life. A decision that everyone around them warned them not to make. A decision they defended for years. The decision to get rid of me completely. And the worst part? They convinced themselves they were doing the right thing. The first time I heard the words, I was standing outside my parents' bedroom. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I had been looking for my math workbook because Emma had a habit of taking my school things and hiding them around the house. As I walked past their room, I heard my mom sigh. I just can't do this anymore. Dad answered quietly. I know. Ryan needs so much attention. I froze. Attention? I had stopped asking them for anything years ago. Mom continued. Emma has piano lessons, dance, swimming, preschool activities. She's finally getting opportunities. We can't keep dividing our time. Dad didn't argue. Instead, he said something that changed my life forever. What if he stayed with Aunt Linda for a while? Silence. Then Mom spoke. Do you think she'd take him? My heart dropped. Take me? Like I was luggage? Dad replied. She's alone now. Her kids are grown. She has space. Mom actually laughed. It might be good for Ryan too. He'll get more attention there. Attention. That word again. They weren't trying to spend more time with me. They were trying to send me somewhere else so they wouldn't have to. I quietly walked back to my room before they could hear me. For the first time in my life, home didn't feel like home anymore. 3 days later, they sat me down at the kitchen table. Mom smiled the same fake smile adults use when they're about to deliver bad news. Ryan, sweetheart, we have an exciting idea. I already knew. Dad folded his hands. You're going to stay with Aunt Linda for a little while. How long? Oh, just until things settle down. What things? Mom avoided my eyes. You know, Emma's schedule is getting busier. I stared at them. So, you're sending me away because Emma has dance class? Dad frowned. Don't be dramatic. Mom added quickly. You're not being sent away. Think of it like a long vacation. I looked around the kitchen. Every family photo on the wall had been updated. Emma in a princess dress. Emma at the zoo. Emma riding a pony. The only picture of me was 5 years old, half hidden behind a decorative plant. A vacation, I whispered. Nobody corrected me. A week later, they packed my clothes into 2 old suitcases. Not new ones. Old ones that still had Dad's faded business tags hanging from them. I noticed something strange. They weren't packing everything. My books stayed on the shelf. My trophies stayed in my closet. My favorite blanket stayed on my bed. What about my stuff? Mom zipped the suitcase. You won't need all of it. But if I'm coming back, we'll keep it safe. She wouldn't even look at me. The drive to Aunt Linda's house took almost 3 hours. Nobody spoke. Emma spent the entire ride watching cartoons on a tablet. Halfway there, she looked up. Why is Ryan coming? Mom smiled. He'll stay with Aunt Linda for a while. Emma shrugged. Okay. Then she went right back to her cartoon. That was it. No tears. No asking me to stay. No hugging me goodbye. To her, I was just another toy disappearing from the playroom. Aunt Linda opened the front door before Dad even knocked. The moment she saw my face, she knew. Oh! She looked from me to my parents. You actually did it. Mom forced another smile. It's only temporary. Aunt Linda didn't smile back. She simply stepped aside. Ryan, come inside. I carried my own suitcases. Neither of my parents offered to help. Inside, Aunt Linda showed me a small bedroom with blue walls. It's not much, she said softly. But it's yours. Mine. No one had called anything mine in years. Dad checked his watch. We should get going. That was it. No long goodbye. No hugs. No promises to visit every weekend. Just, we should get going. I stood in the hallway waiting. Surely Mom would hug me. She walked over. For 1 second, I thought she would. Instead, she straightened my collar. Be good. Then she turned around. I followed them outside. They got into the car. Dad started the engine. I waved. Neither of them rolled down the window. Neither of them waved back. The car disappeared around the corner. I stood there until I couldn't see it anymore. Aunt Linda quietly walked beside me. You can cry if you need to. I shook my head. If I start, my voice cracked. I don't think I'll ever stop. She didn't say anything. She simply wrapped me in the warmest hug I'd felt in years. And that's when I finally broke. The first few weeks felt strange. Every morning I expected my parents to call. They didn't. Every evening I waited for a message. Nothing. I told myself they were busy. Emma probably had another recital. Another birthday party. Another activity. Surely they'd call tomorrow. Tomorrow became next week. Next week became next month. Eventually, I stopped waiting by the phone. Aunt Linda treated me differently than anyone ever had. She asked about my day. She came to my parent-teacher meetings. She framed my school certificates. When I got a 98 on a science test, she baked my favorite chocolate cake. You worked hard, she said proudly. Nobody had ever celebrated my effort before. Not even once. One evening I accidentally called her. Mom. The room went silent. My face turned bright red. I'm sorry, she smiled sadly. You don't have to apologize. She never made me feel guilty. She never tried to replace my mother. She simply loved me. Something I hadn't realized I had been starving for. Almost a full year passed before my parents finally contacted us. Not to ask how I was. Not to apologize. Not to invite me home. Mom called because she wanted Aunt Linda to bring me to Emma's birthday party. "Family will ask where Ryan is," she explained. "We don't want people getting the wrong idea." For the first time, I understood exactly why they remembered I existed. It wasn't because they missed their son. It was because they were worried about what the neighbors might think. And that realization hurt even more than being abandoned. The invitation arrived in a plain white envelope. No handwritten note. "No, we miss you." "No, how have you been?" Just a printed birthday invitation with pink balloons on the front. "You're invited to Emma's 6th birthday celebration." At the bottom, Mom had scribbled a single sentence. "Please wear something nice." That was it. Not, "Love, Mom." Not, "Can't wait to see you." Just, "Wear something nice." I stared at it for a long time before handing it to Aunt Linda. She read it once and sighed. "You don't have to go." I thought about it. Every part of me wanted to throw the invitation away. But another part of me, the little 7-year-old boy who had waited by the front door with a handmade drawing, still hoped. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe they had realized their mistake. Maybe they wanted me home. "I'll go," I said quietly. The morning of the party, Aunt Linda bought me a brand new blue button-up shirt. "You deserve to feel confident." I looked at the price tag. "It was expensive." She smiled. "So? I don't want you wasting money on me." Her expression immediately changed. She knelt until we were eye level. "Ryan," her voice was gentle but firm, "you are never a waste." I had heard those words before. Just the opposite. "You cost too much. You're making life harder. We can't keep dividing our time." Those sentences had lived in my head for years. But hearing someone tell me I wasn't a burden, it almost made me cry. The party was even bigger than the last one. A luxury event hall. Princess castle decorations. Professional entertainers. Face painters. Balloon artists. A petting zoo outside. I couldn't even imagine how much it had cost. Dad stood near the entrance greeting guests. The second he saw me, he smiled. A huge smile. The kind I hadn't seen directed at me in years. "There he is!" He walked over and wrapped an arm around my shoulder. Anyone watching would have thought we were the closest father and son in the world. "Everyone's been asking about you." "Really?" Because none of them had called. Inside, Mom rushed toward me. "Oh my goodness, Ryan!" She hugged me tightly. For one brief second, I almost hugged her back. Then I noticed something. 3 of her friends were standing nearby watching us. The hug wasn't for me. It was for the audience. As soon as they walked away, she let go. Instantly. No smile. No warmth. "Don't disappear," she whispered. "We'll need you for family pictures." Need. Not want. Need. Like another decoration. Emma ran over wearing a sparkling pink princess dress. She looked at me for a second. "Oh!" Then she frowned. "Why are you here?" The words hit me harder than I expected. Mom laughed nervously. "Emma, don't be silly." Emma shrugged. "I thought Ryan lives somewhere else now." The room suddenly became quiet. A few relatives turned their heads. Dad quickly interrupted. "He's been staying with Aunt Linda to help her out." Help her out? I was 11. What exactly was I helping her with? No one questioned it. But I noticed my grandmother staring at Dad with narrowed eyes. She didn't look convinced. For the next 2 hours, I mostly stayed by myself. Nobody really talked to me. I watched Dad follow Emma around with a camera. Every laugh, every gift, every cupcake, hundreds of photos. I wondered how many pictures existed of me from the past year. Probably none. Then Grandma Evelyn found me sitting alone near the garden. She handed me a glass of lemonade. "You've gotten taller." "Thanks." We sat quietly for a minute. Finally, she asked, "Are you happy with Linda?" I nodded. "She's really nice." Grandma smiled sadly. "I thought so." I looked at her. "You knew? I warned your parents not to send you away." That surprised me. "You did?" She nodded. "More than once." "What did they say?" She looked down at her drink. "Your mother told me I was being dramatic." "And Dad?" "He said they were making a sacrifice for Emma's future." Sacrifice. Such a noble-sounding word. Except, I was the sacrifice. Grandma reached into her purse. She pulled out a small envelope. "I've been holding on to this." Inside was a birthday card, addressed to me. My 10th birthday. "I never understood why you never thanked me," she said. "I mailed this to your house." I opened it. The money was still inside. So was her handwritten note. To my wonderful grandson. "Never forget how special you are. Love, Grandma." I looked up. "I never got this." Her face slowly fell. "They told me you did." We both understood what had happened. My parents had kept it from me, for reasons I couldn't even understand. A little later, the photographer gathered everyone. "Family photo!" Dad immediately called out. "Ryan! Hurry!" I walked over. Mom carefully adjusted everyone's position. Emma in the center. Mom beside her. Dad behind them. Then she pointed to the very edge. "You stand there." I ended up half hidden behind a decorative column. The photographer frowned. "Wouldn't you like your son closer?" Before Mom could answer, Emma spoke first. "But this is my birthday." The photographer looked confused. Dad laughed awkwardly. "Kids say the funniest things." Nobody laughed. Not even the photographer. After the pictures, dinner was served. I quietly ate with Aunt Linda. Across the room, I noticed two older relatives whispering while looking toward my parents. One of them shook his head. The other glanced at me with obvious sympathy. People were starting to notice. Not because I said anything. Not because I complained. Simply because the truth was becoming impossible to hide. As the party ended, Mom walked over holding a small paper gift bag. "Here." I opened it in the car on the way home. Inside was a leftover slice of birthday cake and one party favor bag. That was my thank you for showing up. No birthday gift for the one they had missed. No apology. No conversation. Nothing. Aunt Linda gripped the steering wheel tightly. "They should be ashamed." I quietly looked out the window. "No." She glanced at me. "They're not ashamed." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "They don't think they've done anything wrong." At that moment, I still believed my parents would eventually realize what they'd lost. I had no idea that over the next few years, they would make an even bigger mistake. One that would cost them not only their son, but the respect of everyone who had once admired their perfect family. After Emma's birthday, I stopped expecting things to change. I stopped waiting for phone calls. I stopped wondering if my parents would suddenly realize they had made a terrible mistake. Because people who regret something don't keep making the same choice. Mine did. Every single day. Life with Aunt Linda slowly became normal. For the first time, I had routines. Every morning she made breakfast before school. Every evening she asked me the same question. "What was the best part of your day?" At first, I never knew how to answer. No one had ever asked me that before. Eventually, I started telling her everything. The funny joke my history teacher made. The goal I scored during soccer practice. The science experiment that exploded all over my desk. She listened to every story like it was the most important thing she'd heard all day. I finally understood what it felt like to matter. One afternoon, nearly 2 years after I moved in with Aunt Linda, she came home looking upset. She set a stack of papers on the kitchen table. "Ryan, I need to tell you something." My stomach tightened. "What happened?" She hesitated. "I ran into your mother at the grocery store." I didn't know what to feel. It had been months since I'd even heard her voice. "Did she ask about me?" Aunt Linda looked away. "No." The word stung more than I expected. "Then, what did she want?" "She wanted your birth certificate." I blinked. "My birth certificate?" "She said she was reorganizing family records." That sounded strange. Very strange. But neither of us knew the real reason. Not yet. A few weeks later, I found out by accident. My school counselor called me into her office. She smiled kindly. "Ryan, I noticed something odd while updating student records." "What is it?" She turned her computer screen toward me. According to the emergency contact information, my parents' home address was gone. Only Aunt Linda's information remained. "Did your parents officially transfer guardianship?" "I don't know." She frowned. "You should probably ask." That evening, Aunt Linda made a phone call. I sat quietly in the hallway. I wasn't trying to listen, but their voices carried through the house. "What do you mean he's no longer listed?" "No, Linda, don't play dumb. You removed him from the family health insurance? He is still your son." Silence. Then Aunt Linda's voice became colder than I'd ever heard. "So your solution was to pretend he doesn't exist?" She hung up. When she came into the living room, she looked like she was trying not to cry. "They removed you from almost everything." "What do you mean?" "They changed their emergency contacts. They updated legal paperwork. They even switched school notifications so everything comes directly to me." I stared at the floor. "So?" She nodded slowly. "They've built their lives as if you're already gone." I thought that was the worst part. It wasn't. A month later, my middle school held career day. Parents were invited to speak about their jobs. Most kids had moms or dads show up. I knew Aunt Linda would come. She never missed anything. As I walked into the auditorium, I heard 2 boys talking. "Ryan doesn't even live with his parents. I heard they gave him away." "No way. My mom said they only have 1 kid now." I stopped walking. Only 1 kid. Those words echoed in my head. Had people really been told that? At lunch, I finally worked up the courage to ask Aunt Linda, "Did my parents tell people they only have Emma?" She didn't answer right away. That told me everything. Finally, she whispered, "Some people, yes." I felt like all the air had left my lungs. They hadn't just sent me away. They were rewriting their story. A story where I had never existed. That Christmas, something happened that confirmed it. Grandma Evelyn invited everyone to her house, including me. I almost didn't go, but Aunt Linda convinced me. "You shouldn't lose the people who still love you." When we arrived, the living room was overflowing with wrapped presents. Emma's pile was enormous. Mine had 3 gifts. I didn't care. 3 gifts from people who actually thought about me meant more than 100 from people pretending. Halfway through dinner, one of Grandma's neighbors stopped by. She smiled warmly at my parents. "Oh, how wonderful! Emma has gotten so big." Then she looked at me. "And who's this handsome young man?" The room fell completely silent. Dad hesitated. Mom opened her mouth, then closed it. Before either of them could answer, Grandma spoke firmly. "This is my oldest grandson, Ryan." The neighbor looked confused. "I didn't know you had another child." Dad forced a laugh. He stays with a relative. Grandma calmly set down her fork. He stays with Linda because you abandoned him. You could have heard a pin drop. Mom's face turned bright red. Dad looked furious. Mother, this isn't the time. Grandma looked directly at him. No. Her voice was steady. The right time was years ago. Nobody spoke for the rest of dinner. On the drive home, I expected Aunt Linda to apologize for how awkward everything had been. Instead, she smiled. You know what happened tonight? I shrugged. Your grandmother stopped protecting their lies. I looked out the window. For years, everyone had quietly accepted my parents' version of events. Tonight was different. Someone had finally said the truth out loud. And once the truth is spoken, it's very difficult to force it back into silence. I didn't know it then, but Grandma's words at that Christmas dinner would be the beginning of the end for my parents' carefully crafted image. Because from that day forward, people started asking questions my parents couldn't answer forever. Grandma's words spread through the family faster than anyone expected. Not because she was gossiping. She wasn't. She simply refused to lie anymore. When relatives asked why I lived with Aunt Linda, she answered honestly. Because his parents chose to raise one child and abandon the other. Some people didn't believe her at first. Others did. But everyone started paying closer attention. And once they did, the cracks in my parents' perfect family became impossible to ignore. I was 14 when I stopped calling them Mom and Dad. Not out loud. Just in my own mind. Whenever I thought about them, they became Michael, Sarah. It felt strange at first, but it also felt honest. Parents are people who raise you, who show up, who protect you, who make you feel safe. Michael and Sarah had stopped doing that years ago. Aunt Linda had earned the title they threw away. School became my escape. I buried myself in studying. If I couldn't have a family, I would build a future. I joined the debate team, the robotics club, the soccer team. I volunteered at the local animal shelter every Saturday. Not because I was trying to impress anyone, because staying busy kept my mind from wandering. One afternoon, my principal called me into his office. I'd like to nominate you for a state leadership scholarship. I blinked. Me? He smiled. You've become one of the hardest working students this school has ever had. When I got home and told Aunt Linda, she cried. Not because I had one, because she was proud. That was a feeling I had almost forgotten existed. A few weeks later, the scholarship committee invited families to an awards banquet. The invitation allowed 2 guests. There was never any question who I'd invite. Aunt Linda and Grandma Evelyn. That night, I stood on a stage in front of hundreds of people. The presenter smiled. Ryan has overcome significant personal challenges while maintaining outstanding academic excellence. Everyone applauded. I looked toward my table. Aunt Linda was wiping away tears. Grandma was clapping so hard her hands turned red. For the first time, the people cheering for me were the people who had actually been there. The local newspaper published a story the next morning. Local teen wins prestigious state scholarship. There was a large photo of me standing between Aunt Linda and Grandma. The article referred to Aunt Linda as my guardian. Apparently, that article eventually found its way to Michael and Sarah. Because 3 days later, my phone rang. I stared at the screen. Mom. I hadn't seen that word appear in over a year. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello? Her voice sounded unusually cheerful. Ryan! Sweetheart. Sweetheart. A word she hadn't used in years. I saw your picture in the paper. Oh, we're so proud of you. The sentence felt foreign, like hearing a stranger claim they had raised me. I have to go. Wait! She sounded nervous. Your father and I were thinking. Thinking. Always dangerous. Maybe you should come over for dinner this weekend. I was silent. It'll be nice. Just family. Family. The word almost made me laugh. After everything. Now I was family again? What changed? She hesitated. What do you mean? You haven't called me in over a year. Oh, we've just been so busy. Busy. Always busy. With Emma. With themselves. With everyone except me. I can't make it. Ryan Dash. I have homework. Then I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not because I felt guilty. Because for the first time in my life, I had chosen myself. A month later, I learned why they had suddenly remembered I existed. Grandma came over one Sunday afternoon. She looked exhausted. Your parents are having problems. I frowned. What kind of problems? She sighed. Emma. Apparently, 13-year-old Emma had become impossible to control. She skipped school, lied constantly, stole money from Sarah's purse, talked back to teachers, destroyed expensive electronics whenever she got angry. Every time someone tried to discipline her, she screamed until they gave in. Michael and Sarah had spent years teaching her that she was the center of the universe. Now, she believed it, and she treated them the same way they had once treated me, like servants. What are they doing about it? I asked. Grandma gave a sad smile. They don't know how. Of course they didn't. They had never told Emma. No. Never made her face consequences. Never expected responsibility. They had mistaken spoiling for love. Now they were living with the result. A few days later, I ran into one of my old neighbors while walking home from school. He smiled when he recognized me. Ryan, you're looking great. Thanks. Then his smile faded. I feel sorry for your parents. I looked at him. Why? He lowered his voice. Emma was caught screaming at your mother in the middle of the grocery store yesterday. What happened? She wanted a designer handbag. I blinked. At 13? He nodded. When your mother said no, Emma threw herself on the floor, called her a cheap loser, and knocked over an entire display of glass jars. People recorded it on their phones. Employees had to clean up the mess. Your parents looked completely helpless. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt sad. Another part remembered being 7 years old, holding a crumpled drawing no one wanted. That night, I sat on the porch with Aunt Linda. Do you think they'll ever understand? She looked at the stars before answering. I think they're beginning to. But understanding isn't the same as changing. I nodded. She was right. Real regret isn't crying because your life became difficult. Real regret is admitting you were the one who caused it, and judging by everything I'd heard. Michael and Sarah still weren't ready to do that. Not yet. But life had already started teaching them lessons they had refused to learn from anyone else. And those lessons were only getting started. By the time I turned 16, I barely thought about Michael and Sarah anymore. Life had become peaceful. I was at the top of my class. I had close friends. I was captain of the debate team. On weekends, I worked part-time at a local bookstore to save money for college. For the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving. I was living. Meanwhile, according to Grandma Evelyn, things at my parents' house were falling apart. Emma had become the kind of teenager everyone in town recognized. Not for good reasons. It started with small incidents. She bullied classmates. She mocked teachers. She posted cruel videos online just to embarrass other kids. Whenever the school called home, Sarah defended her. They're just jealous of my daughter. Michael blamed everyone except Emma. The teachers are targeting her. Neither of them could admit the truth. They had spent years convincing Emma she was perfect. Now she believed she could do no wrong. One Saturday afternoon, Grandma stopped by Aunt Linda's house looking exhausted. She sat down at the kitchen table and rubbed her temples. "What happened?" Aunt Linda asked. Grandma sighed. "Emma stole Sarah's credit card." I looked up from my homework. "What?" "She ordered thousands of dollars worth of clothes and cosmetics online." "Did they report it?" Grandma gave a bitter laugh. "They couldn't." "Why not?" "Because Emma admitted she did it." She hadn't hidden it. She had simply smiled and said, "I knew you'd pay for it anyway." Michael had canceled a few orders, but most had already been delivered. Instead of grounding her, they argued with each other. Sarah blamed Michael. Michael blamed Sarah. Emma locked herself in her room and blasted music loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Nobody actually punished her. A month later, Grandma called again. This time her voice sounded worried. "Ryan, your parents were at the police station today." My stomach tightened. "What happened?" "Emma and two friends vandalized a shopping center." Apparently, they had spray-painted walls, broken decorative lights, and posted videos of themselves laughing while security guards chased them. The videos spread quickly online. Local news stations even mentioned the incident. Emma wasn't arrested because she was still a minor, but the families had to pay for the damages. Michael and Sarah spent thousands trying to settle everything quietly. They thought money could fix what years of bad parenting had created. It couldn't. Despite everything, they still didn't contact me. Until one rainy Tuesday evening. I had just finished my shift at the bookstore when my phone buzzed. Michael calling. I stared at the screen. After a moment, I answered. "Hello?" His voice sounded older. Tired. "Ryan, how are you?" "I'm fine." There was an awkward silence. "I heard you're working now." "Yes." "That's good." Another silence. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Emma's been having a difficult time." I waited. "I was wondering if you could talk to her." I almost thought I had misheard him. "Me? She needs a positive influence." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. "You sent me away when I was 11. Silence. "You barely spoke to me for 5 years. Silence. "And now you think I can fix the daughter you raised?" His breathing became heavier. "We're just asking for help." "No." "Ryan Dash, you didn't want a son." I spoke calmly. "You wanted one child. You made that choice." Then I ended the call. For several minutes, I simply sat in my car. I wasn't angry anymore. Just amazed. After everything, they still thought I existed only when they needed something. A few weeks later, my high school hosted its annual academic awards ceremony. I received 3 awards that night. Outstanding Student, Community Leadership, Highest Academic Achievement. As I stepped off the stage, I heard someone call my name. I turned around. Michael was standing near the auditorium entrance. Alone. He looked nervous. Older than I remembered. His hair had started turning gray. "Can we talk?" I looked toward Aunt Linda and Grandma. They stayed where they were, giving me space to decide. I nodded. We walked into the hallway. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he looked at the trophies in my hands. "I missed a lot." I didn't answer. "I should have been here." Still, I stayed silent. He rubbed his face. "I kept telling myself we'd have time later." His voice cracked slightly. But later never came. For the first time in years. He sounded less like a man making excuses, and more like a man realizing the cost of his decisions. Before he could say anything else, his phone rang. he answered immediately. What? His face went pale. We're coming. He hung up and looked at me. Emma's been suspended again. Of course she had. He gave me one last look. I'm sorry. Then he hurried away. I watched him disappear down the hallway. Those 2 words should have meant everything. Instead, they felt 20 times too late. Because apologies can't give someone back their childhood. They can't erase years of loneliness. And they certainly can't rebuild trust in a single sentence. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something much bigger was coming. Emma's behavior was getting worse with every passing month. Soon, it wouldn't just embarrass Michael and Sarah. It would completely destroy the perfect life they had spent years trying so hard to protect. A few months after my 16th birthday, the story everyone in town was talking about wasn't mine. It was Emma's. She had always believed rules were for other people. Now the entire town was watching what happened when someone grew up without ever hearing the word no. It happened during the town's annual spring festival. Thousands of people filled the streets. Local businesses had booths. Schools performed on stage. Families walked around eating food and watching live music. I was volunteering at the bookstore's charity stand with a few classmates. Around lunchtime, I heard shouting from the other end of the square. At first, nobody paid much attention. Then the shouting turned into screaming. People started running toward the noise. One of my coworkers looked over. I think there's a fight. Curious, we walked closer. What I saw made me stop in my tracks. Emma was standing in the middle of a crowded jewelry booth. Her face was bright red with anger. A shop owner was trying to calm her down. Sarah looked like she was about to cry. Michael kept begging her to lower her voice. Emma wasn't listening. I said I want it. She pointed at an expensive diamond necklace displayed inside a glass case. It costs over $3,000, the owner said nervously. I don't care, Sarah whispered. Emma, please. Emma spun around. You embarrassed me by saying no in front of everyone. Then, she shoved an entire display case. Glass shattered across the floor. The crowd gasped. Someone immediately started recording on their phone. Michael grabbed Emma's arm. That's enough. She ripped her arm away so hard that he stumbled backward. Then she screamed loud enough for half the festival to hear. I hate both of you. You've ruined my life. You never give me anything. Several people in the crowd exchanged confused looks. An older woman whispered, Didn't they buy her a new car last month? Another person replied, I think so. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Police officers working security arrived within minutes. They separated everyone and took statements. The jewelry store owner estimated thousands of dollars in damages. Michael immediately offered to pay. He looked completely defeated. Sarah couldn't stop crying. Emma? She stood there scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. Not once did she apologize. Not once did she admit she had done anything wrong. The next morning, videos from the festival were everywhere. Local community pages, neighborhood groups, even regional news picked up the story. People weren't just criticizing Emma. They were criticizing her parents. Comments flooded every post. This is what happens when children never face consequences. I've seen this family for years. The parents created this monster. I feel sorry for whoever has to deal with her in adulthood. For the first time, Michael and Sarah couldn't control the narrative. The entire town had watched everything with their own eyes. A week later, Grandma invited Aunt Linda and me over for dinner. When we arrived, she looked unusually serious. I need to tell you something. We sat around the dining table. Grandma folded her hands. Your parents came to see me yesterday. I looked up. What did they want? They cried. That surprised me. They admitted they're overwhelmed. I stayed quiet. Grandma continued. They said they don't know how Emma became this way. Aunt Linda closed her eyes. They really said that? Grandma nodded. They acted like it happened overnight. None of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, Aunt Linda broke the silence. No, it happened over 16 years. Grandma looked at me. I asked them one question. What? When was the last time you told Emma no before she turned 12? What did they say? They couldn't answer. Because there wasn't an answer. Every tantrum had been rewarded. Every demand had been met. Every bad decision had been excused. And every time they ignored me to make Emma happy. They taught her that everyone else existed to serve her, including them. 2 weeks later, something happened that shocked even me. Michael came to Aunt Linda's house. He stood on the porch holding a worn-out cardboard box. When Aunt Linda opened the door, he looked exhausted. I found these in the attic. He handed me the box. Inside, my childhood. The drawing I had made to welcome Emma home. Still folded. Still stained where someone had stepped on it. My Student of the Year trophy. Old report cards. Soccer medals. Birthday cards I had never received. Even the Father's Day card I made in 2nd grade. It had never been opened. I stared at the box without saying a word. Michael's eyes filled with tears. I didn't know these were up there. I looked at him. You didn't know because you never looked. He lowered his head. There was nothing he could say. Because I was right. Before leaving, he stopped at the end of the driveway. Without turning around, he quietly said, I've spent years trying to fix Emma. He paused. But I think the person I should have been trying to fix things with was you. Then he got into his car and drove away. I stood there holding the box that contained the childhood I'd never really had. For the first time, I believed Michael finally understood what he had destroyed. But understanding the damage was only the beginning. Because while he was trying to face the past, Emma was about to create a scandal so massive that it would threaten everything my parents had left: their reputation, their careers, and every relationship they still had. And this time, no amount of money would be enough to make it disappear. By the time I turned 17, Michael and Sarah looked like completely different people. The confident couple who had spent years showing off their perfect family had disappeared. They looked exhausted. They argued constantly. Neighbors said shouting could be heard from their house almost every night. Emma, meanwhile, acted like none of it was her fault. In her mind, everyone else was the problem. Teachers, friends, neighbors, her parents, the world, never herself. One Friday afternoon, I was studying in the school library when my phone buzzed. It was Grandma Evelyn. Her voice was shaky. Ryan, are you busy? I'm just studying. What's wrong? You need to come to my house. When I arrived, Aunt Linda was already there. Grandma was sitting at the kitchen table with a laptop open. Without saying a word, she turned the screen toward me. There was a video. It had already been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. The title read, Spoiled Teen Destroys Charity Auction After Losing Bid. I pressed play. My stomach sank. The annual Children's Hospital charity auction was one of the biggest events in town. Local business owners donated expensive items. The money raised helped sick children receive treatment. Michael's company had sponsored the event for years. Emma had attended with her parents. Everything seemed normal. Until the auction started. Emma wanted a designer handbag that had been donated by a luxury boutique. She assumed her parents would simply keep bidding until they won it. But another family offered a higher bid. Michael quietly told her, We're done. For the first time in her life. He actually meant it. Emma exploded. She stood up in the middle of the ballroom. "You embarrass me." People turned to stare. Sarah begged her to sit down. Instead, Emma grabbed the auction paddle and threw it across the room. It hit a decorative centerpiece, sending flowers and glass crashing onto the floor. Children started crying. Guests rushed away from the tables. Someone recorded everything. Then came the words that changed everything. Emma pointed at Michael and Sarah and screamed, "I wish you weren't my parents. You've never done anything for me." The room fell completely silent. Several people actually laughed in disbelief, because almost everyone there knew exactly how much Michael and Sarah had sacrificed to give Emma everything she wanted. The video spread across social media within hours. This time, it wasn't just local. People from across the country were commenting. Some criticized Emma. Others criticized Michael and Sarah. Many wrote the same thing. "This isn't just a spoiled teenager. This is the result of years of bad parenting." Michael's business clients started asking questions. A few quietly ended contracts. Not because of Emma alone, but because they didn't want their companies associated with constant public scandals. Within 2 weeks, Michael's business had lost several major accounts. Years of reputation gone. Sarah wasn't doing any better. She worked at a private elementary school. Parents recognized her from the viral videos. Several complained to the school administration. One parent reportedly asked, "If she couldn't teach respect to her own daughter, how can she help educate ours?" The school didn't fire Sarah, but she was placed on administrative leave while everything was reviewed. For the first time, their public image had real consequences. Then, on a rainy Sunday evening, my phone rang. It was Michael. I almost ignored it. Almost. "Hello?" His voice sounded broken. "Ryan." There was a long silence. Then, "I don't know what to do anymore." I didn't answer. He continued quietly. "I thought giving Emma everything meant loving her. I thought protecting her from disappointment made me a good father." Another pause. I was wrong. Those words hung in the air. Simple. Painful. True. "I failed her," he whispered. "And I failed you." I closed my eyes. For years, those were the words I'd wanted to hear. Not because they erased the past, but because they acknowledged it. Still, acknowledging something wasn't the same as fixing it. "You did," I replied calmly. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, he asked, "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" I looked out the window. Rain tapped softly against the glass. "I don't know." It wasn't meant to hurt him. It was simply the truth. Forgiveness isn't something you owe someone because they finally apologized. It's something that takes time. Sometimes years. Sometimes longer. A few days later, Grandma called again. "Emma left home." "What?" "She packed several bags and moved in with some older friends after another argument." "Did anyone know where she went?" "They found out later." Apparently, Emma believed she deserved complete freedom. No rules. No responsibilities. No parents telling her what to do. She left a handwritten note on the kitchen table. "You ruined my life. Don't call me unless you're ready to pay for my apartment." Even after everything, she still believed they owed her more. That night, I sat on the back porch with Aunt Linda. "Do you feel sorry for them?" she asked. I thought about it for a long time. Finally, I nodded. "A little?" She looked at me. But I also remember being 7 years old. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Standing at the front door with a drawing they never looked at. Aunt Linda reached over and squeezed my shoulder. Some wounds never completely disappear. You simply learn how to live around them. As for Michael and Sarah, Their biggest challenge was still ahead, because Emma wasn't finished humiliating them. In fact, within a few months, she would return home not to apologize, but to demand even more. And that final confrontation would force my parents to choose between the daughter they had created and the son they had abandoned. Emma was gone for almost 3 months. At first, Michael and Sarah tried calling her every day. She ignored them. Then, they started sending money. She accepted every transfer. Never a thank you. Never a phone call. Only new demands. Rent is due. I need a new phone. Send more. For years, they had taught her that love meant giving her whatever she wanted. Now she treated them like an ATM, and they had no one to blame but themselves. One evening, Grandma called me. Ryan, your parents need help. I sighed. Is Emma okay? Physically, yes. Then what happened? She came home. For a brief moment, I thought maybe she had realized how much damage she'd caused. I couldn't have been more wrong. According to Grandma, Emma didn't come home carrying flowers. She didn't come home with an apology. She walked through the front door dragging 3 expensive suitcases. The first thing she said was, My apartment was disgusting. Sarah hugged her immediately. We're just happy you're safe. Emma pushed her away. I'm hungry. Not. I missed you. Not. I'm sorry. Just. I'm hungry. Michael quietly made dinner. Emma took one bite. This is cold. She shoved the plate away. I'll order something. She used Michael's credit card without asking. Old habits never really disappeared. Over the next 2 weeks, things became even worse. Emma slept all day, stayed out all night, invited strangers into the house, played loud music until sunrise, ignored every rule. When Sarah asked her to clean her room, Emma laughed. You clean it. When Michael asked where she'd been all night, she rolled her eyes. I'm an adult. She wanted the freedom of adulthood, without any of its responsibilities. Finally, one Friday evening, Michael snapped. Grandma told me every detail because she had been there. Emma had just demanded a brand new luxury SUV. The one she already had wasn't good enough. Michael looked at her for a long time. Then he quietly said one word. No. The room became silent. Emma stared at him. What? I said no? She laughed. No, seriously. I'm serious. For the first time in 17 years. Michael didn't back down. Emma's smile disappeared. You owe me. Michael slowly stood up. No. We gave you everything. We protected you. We defended you. And look where it got you. Emma folded her arms. So this is his fault? She pointed toward an old family photo on the wall. It showed me when I was 6 years old. The only picture of me they had never thrown away. You always cared more about him. The word stunned everyone in the room. Sarah actually gasped. Michael looked like he'd been slapped. You abandoned him, Emma shouted. You should have gotten rid of his pictures too. Those words echoed through the house. For the first time, Michael truly understood what they had created. A daughter who wasn't just spoiled. A daughter who had learned to erase people the same way her parents had erased me. She had become exactly like them, only louder, crueler, more public. Michael walked over to the wall. He took the old family photo down. For one terrifying second, Emma smiled. She thought he was finally removing me. Instead, he carefully cleaned the dust off the frame. Then he looked directly at Emma. This, his voice shook, is my son. The son I failed. The son I abandoned. The son who deserved better. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. Emma stared in disbelief. Michael continued. I can't change what I did to Ryan, but I won't let you disrespect him anymore. Emma laughed bitterly. So you're choosing him now? Michael nodded. I should have chosen both of you. But if you're asking whether I'll keep enabling you. He took a deep breath. The answer is no. Emma exploded. She swept decorations off a table. She screamed. She called both of them every insult she could think of. Then she pointed toward the front door. You'll regret this. Michael didn't move. Instead, he opened the door himself. If you can't respect this home, he looked at her with tears in his eyes. You can't live here. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Finally, Emma grabbed her designer handbag, stormed outside, and slammed the front door so hard that one of the hallway picture frames crashed to the floor. The house became completely silent. Sarah collapsed onto the couch sobbing. Michael stood frozen near the doorway. Years earlier, that same door had closed behind an 11-year-old boy carrying 2 old suitcases. Back then, he hadn't fought to keep me. Now, he had finally learned what it meant to let someone face the consequences of their choices. The lesson had come far too late. The next morning, there was another knock at Aunt Linda's door. I opened it. Michael and Sarah were standing there together. Neither of them said a word. Then, both of them started crying. Not because Emma had left, because they had finally realized that years ago, they had been the ones who had sent away the child who still loved them. And this time, they weren't asking me to fix their problems. They had come for only one reason: to beg for a chance to make amends. Whether they deserved that chance was a decision only I could make. When I opened Aunt Linda's front door, Michael and Sarah stood there like strangers. The confident couple who had once believed they were raising the perfect family were gone. They looked exhausted, older, broken. For several long seconds, nobody spoke. Then Sarah whispered the words I had waited almost 10 years to hear. We're sorry. Not. We were stressed. Not. We did our best. Not. Emma needed us. Just. We're sorry. Aunt Linda stepped into the hallway. Ryan, she said gently, this is your decision. Whatever you choose, I'll support you. I nodded. Then I invited Michael and Sarah inside. We sat around the same kitchen table where Aunt Linda had helped me with homework, celebrated my birthdays, and comforted me after nightmares. The home they had abandoned me to had become the safest place I had ever known. Ironically, it was also the place where they would finally face the truth. Michael looked around the house. Every wall held framed photographs. My graduation certificates, soccer medals, debate trophies, pictures from camping trips, birthdays, Christmas mornings, family dinners, a whole childhood, one they had never seen. His voice cracked. We missed all of this. I looked at him calmly. Yes. No anger. No shouting. Just the truth. You missed everything. Sarah broke down crying. I kept telling myself we'd have time. I shook my head. You had time. You chose not to use it. She covered her face. I know. You weren't too busy. You weren't too overwhelmed. You made room for Emma's dance lessons, birthdays, shopping trips, vacations, and every school event. I swallowed the lump in my throat. You just didn't make room for me. Neither of them tried to argue, because there was nothing left to defend. Michael reached into a folder he had brought with him. I've been going through old boxes. He slid several photographs across the table. They were pictures of me. Not many. Only a handful. Most had never been printed. I found these on an old hard drive. His hands trembled. I realized these are almost all the pictures we have of your childhood. I looked at them. One from my first soccer game. One from second grade. One blurry birthday photo. That was it. 7 years of my life, reduced to a few forgotten files on a computer. Meanwhile, I knew there were thousands of pictures of Emma. Albums, videos, professional portraits. It didn't make me jealous anymore. It just made me sad. "I don't expect forgiveness," Michael said quietly. "I don't expect you to call us Mom and Dad again." Sarah nodded through tears. "We only wanted you to know." She struggled to finish the sentence. "That losing you was the greatest mistake of our lives." I looked at both of them for a long time. Then I finally spoke. "You didn't lose me." They both looked up. "You gave me away." Silence filled the room. "And someone else chose to love me." I reached over and took Aunt Linda's hand. "If she hadn't opened her door." I smiled at her. "I don't know who I'd be today." Aunt Linda squeezed my hand but said nothing. She didn't have to. A few weeks later, I graduated from high school as valedictorian. The auditorium was packed. When my name was announced, the loudest cheers came from Aunt Linda and Grandma Evelyn. As I walked across the stage, I noticed Michael and Sarah sitting quietly in the back row. They hadn't asked for reserved seats. They hadn't tried to be part of the spotlight. They simply came to watch. For once, they understood that showing up wasn't about being seen. It was about being present. After the ceremony, Michael congratulated me. "I'm proud of you." I smiled politely. "Thank you." It was the first genuine conversation we'd had in years. Small, awkward, but honest. Over the next 2 years, they kept trying. Not with expensive gifts. Not with excuses. They called on my birthday, sent Christmas cards, asked if I wanted to meet for lunch. Sometimes I said yes. Sometimes I said no. They accepted every answer without complaining. Trust wasn't rebuilt overnight. It was rebuilt one respectful choice at a time. As for Emma, life finally forced her to face consequences. She worked several ordinary jobs, moving from one to another after realizing no employer would tolerate the behavior her parents once had. Eventually, she reached out to Sarah, not asking for money, just asking how she was doing. It wasn't a dramatic transformation, but it was the first small sign that she was beginning to grow up. I hoped she would continue, not for my sake, for hers. Years later, on Aunt Linda's birthday, our whole family gathered at her house. Grandma sat at the head of the table, smiling as she watched everyone laugh together. Michael stood up holding a glass. "I'd like to say something." The room became quiet. He looked directly at Aunt Linda. "You saved my son's life." His voice shook. "You gave him everything we failed to give." He wiped away a tear. "I can never repay you." Aunt Linda smiled warmly. "You don't have to." She looked at me. "Seeing the man Ryan became is more than enough." That night, after everyone left, I walked onto the back porch alone. The stars looked exactly the same as they had the night I first arrived at Aunt Linda's house carrying 2 old suitcases. Back then, I believed I had lost my family. I was wrong. I hadn't lost my family. I had simply found it somewhere else. Because family isn't defined by the people who bring you into the world. It's defined by the people who stay. The people who cheer for your victories. Who comfort you after your failures. Who choose you every single day. Michael and Sarah spent years chasing the dream of a perfect child and almost destroyed themselves in the process. Aunt Linda never looked for perfection. She simply chose love. And in the end, love accomplished what perfection never could.